Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. It is great to have everyone here today. And first of all, a little introduction of the show and what we are doing today. I wanted to do something different. We've been doing a lot of anti theism lately, and with all of the political chaos in the world, I just kind of wanted to do just something different. So I said, hey, what would really be great would be putting to get together a panel of military experts that could talk about the ridiculous blunders of Putin in Ukraine, and we can all just crap all over Ukraine and all over. I'm sorry, not over Ukraine, but over Putin. But unfortunately, no one at the Pentagon was available, so you're stuck with us.
Yeah.
And instead of getting experts, we all have opinions. Now, granted, our opinions are a little better informed than some of just the general lay of public, because all of us here have some kind of military background, either having been in the military or for myself, yeah, I was a military wife for 26 years, and my husband was a tank commander. So I've certainly heard plenty of the stories. And my husband has also told a bunch of really good, given me a bunch of really good insight into what's going on and why Putin is not winning this war. And if you're wondering why, well, why isn't he on the panel? And the answer is because this just isn't his cup of tea. Um, and if you're wondering about why it's a bit dark here, the answer is because my air conditioning went out about 2 hours ago. And it is just too hot to turn on the lights. It's 90 degrees outside. It's only 80 in here, so I'm still doing okay. But if I turn on the lights, I am going to roast. So that's where we are. And so for our panel today we have Atheist Edge. So Jim, can you tell us a little bit about your background here?
Hi, happy to be back on. Atheist Edge, just Google it. You guys know, you will find it. As far as my background, 21 years active duty Marine Corps, multiple combat tours. My background's in signals intelligence, but I would say I'm not a trigger puller, but in the Marine Corps, your first and foremost job, every Marine is a rifleman. That's the thing. My day-to-day job was not kicking indoors. I'm putting rounds down range, though. So you're right, Grady. Not an expert in this, but maybe I can shed. I took 4 pages of notes. I got kind of up to date on Putin kind of crapping his pants right now, so a little bit to add. That's about it.
Okay. Kaz, tell us a little bit about your background that is the reason that I asked you to be on the panel, that you have some opinions on this.
Okay. Thank you so much, Granny. I did 6 years active duty in the Army. I was a medic attached to the infantry. That's I guess that's about it for that. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Now, Uncle Beck is supposed to be here as well, and I have not heard from Uncle Beck, so I do not know where Beck is or why Beck is not here at the moment. Hopefully, Beck has not had any issues, but when Beck gets here, we will just add him to the show. Okay, for now, let's go ahead and start. Let's start with the beginning of the war. One thing that I was absolutely amazed at, and I wasn't the only one, most of the world was in this boat, was when the war began and Russia invaded Ukraine. Everybody expected Ukraine to be absolutely run over in a matter of days. Trump had mentioned that this would happen, and there were plenty of people predicting that Ukraine would fall in a matter of days, and it didn't happen. And one of the reasons that I do know was an issue was communications. Russian communications early in the war were not encrypted, and all of their radio signals were going out, and the Ukrainians were able to hear everything that they were saying. I even heard people uploading live the Russian soldiers speaking to each other from one tank to another. Now, I couldn't understand it. It was in Russian, and I actually do speak a bit of Russian, but not enough to be fluent. And so that was an issue. And then I was just absolutely amazed at the fortitude of the Ukrainian army, that they were able to keep themselves together. And another person that I have been extremely impressed with is Zelensky. I think as a world leader, he is one heck of a leader. Keeping his country motivated, making appeals to the rest of the world and trying to bring in aid. Um, Anyone have any comments on those issues?
Kaz, go for it, Ben.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely was expecting a much quicker uh, folding of Ukraine at the beginning, and the fact that it's funny. I don't want to be you know too pejorative of Russians or Russia as a country, but there's this kind of the made in China stereotype kind of applies to Russia, and it kind of applies in a sense to their military in a way, and that kind of is exemplified in that story there when you're talking about their communications being breached so easily. So that's my reaction to that. And go ahead, Jim.
This war didn't start in February of this year. This war started in 2014 when they just ran over Crimea unopposed, unprovoked hostility, and the world just sat there on their thumbs, did nothing. That was our first mistake as a global community. If you think Putin is going to stop right now, he would be happy. Turkey's trying to negotiate peace agreements between Zelensky and Putin, right? If that even happens, and Zelensky is willing to give up the Donbass, the whole eastern Ukraine, and the land bridge all the way to, I'm thinking Mariupol, but that's not even the right.
Odessa.
Odessa. You think he'll stop there? Do you guys really think he's going to stop there?
No.
No. The only thing he's thought of, the only reason he became president, the only reason that he's become a dictator, he wants to get the band back together. He wants Kazakhstan, all the stands, Uzbekistan. He wants Estonia, Latvia. He's not going to stop, even if he gets Ukraine and Belarus. He's not going to stop there. And now, even Finland, who up until just this year, for decades since World War II, said, "Nah, we don't need to be in NATO. We don't want to provoke Russia." Guess who wants to join NATO now? Switzerland, who's been neutral even during World War II. Guess who chose a side already? I mean, it's real now. And I saw it coming in 2014. Not to toot my own horn, but why? Not only did we hardly put any sanctions down, they were nothing. There was nothing. I'm thinking military action now. Of course, we've got the nuclear threat, but I would have been for a NATO reaction to unprovoked attack on a sovereign country. The other thing you talked about, Granny, about communications. You said before it's still going on.
Oh, really?
Most of the
that they're now
tactical comms right
encrypted.
now are still unencrypted. They don't have the supplies. They don't have They don't. It takes special gear to encrypt your radio, your VHF and your HF comms. They just don't have it. And now that they have lost, Russia has lost a third of their fighting force. They're getting desperate. Now, a vast majority of them are conscripted, sometimes foreign conscripted. So they're just throwing bodies at this now. And the more they throw, the less trained they were than the ones that went in initially. So they're going to die even faster. And the supplies are going to be even degraded than they were originally. So yes, the comms are still out in the open. They're in the clear. Amateur hams, not just in Ukraine, but those within earshot of the comms, just like you said, are putting them on repeaters, sometimes in real time. And we know by listening to these, this is my forte. This is electronic communications and collection surveillance. So I don't speak Russian, but I'm looking at what they've collected and the transcripts of it. And I've noticed a lot of other things that I've been able to glean from that is that they have no concept of formal military comms procedures. They're just talking like, "Hey, Joe, where are you at?" They're stopping and asking for directions. They're eating MREs that were expired in 2013. Their supply chain is non-existent. That's all. Yeah, I'll shut up for now. I got
Oh
some
no,
opinions, though.
you're more than welcome.
Yeah. All right.
One issue that my husband brought up that I thought was really interesting was he was saying you do not take a tank unit anywhere without support from heavy infantry. Um, Tanks are vulnerable, particularly the tracks. That was one thing that he always told me as a tanker is how often those tracks would come off, and they were repairing the tracks. You've got to have heavy infantry accompanying any kind of tank unit, and the Russians haven't been doing that. They were so confident, so cocky that they thought they could just run their tanks in and just run over everything. And guess what? They can't.
Hmm. Yeah, there seems to be some kind of narcissistic kind of delusion of grandeur that has a grip on him, and it's not he won't stop. I don't think he'll ever stop until maybe Russia is completely run into the ground, until it's completely bankrupted and there is no more economy there at all, or he actually achieves his goals, which I don't think that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hug this show, Kelly.
No, go ahead,
I'm
Jim.
trying
There's
so
only
hard not
three
to.
of us. No,
Okay.
there's only three of us.
All right.
Go ahead.
So the Russian
I'm not
army,
going to talk too much.
a lot like what is our forces and their forces look similar in organizational structure. Their largest organizational structure is an army. They have several armies. Russia does. All right. So army is the biggest, and it goes down to like regiments, battalions, like normal, right? And the smallest groups usually a platoon and then a squad, right? In the Marine Corps, there's a smaller one than that. It's a fire team, usually 4 or 5 Marines, right? A Russian army, which is a huge chunk of their military forces, right? One Russian army, that's their largest unit. It's only supported their supply and combat engineers and logistics guys that travel with that army, only 1,000 soldiers. And every expert I've ever talked to on every channel I've ever been watching since this war started is saying that's woefully inadequate. Only 1,000 soldiers and just 400 trucks to support an entire army. 400 supply combat engineer trucks. That's all they got to support. And just like you said, your husband was a tanker, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Russia's lost 680 tanks so far, and that's a conservative estimate. Tanks. What are they trying to do? They're trying to hit with tanks and long-range indirect fire artillery, right? They have controlled the skies, but they're not using it properly because their planes are outdated, and they used a lot of their precision armament, air to ground, in Syria. So now they're relying on inferior air to ground. So really, they're just relying on arty and tanks, and they're trying to just decrease the morale and trying to break the Ukrainian spirit by just going from afar, taking out structures haphazardly. Doesn't matter if civilians are involved; they don't care. They're just going to cause destruction and break their spirit. That's all they're trying to do right now. Every time you've seen it, Kiev, many of the other cities that they've tried to take, to actually bring tanks close to as soon as they get within city limits, tanks are useless. And they could be more useful if they had an infantry unit with them. But guess what Russia's not doing? They're not attaching infantry to it. The tanks are going in just flapping in the wind. They're exposed to high vantage points in 3rd, 4th, 5th story windows, these javelins, and not Hellfires. The UK has given them some great anti-tank weapons here lately. Whatever the UK has given them is working guess how long it takes civilians can pick these up and be experts on firing them within 24 hours. That's how easy they are to use.
Yeah.
So tanks are sitting ducks in urban areas. That's why they've already lost almost 700 of them. They're not good for urban warfare. Why did Putin pick the end of February, the beginning of spring, to start this? Does he not read about Stalin? Did he not read about any Russian history where you try to conduct operations in springtime on that kind of terrain? How wet and that was the biggest blunder right there. That was the biggest blunder. And then, of course, like I said, there was no infantry support for the tank units.
Do you think that it's just because his generals don't have the experience of commanding units in battle, or do you think that it's because their troops just don't have? They don't have the capacity. They don't have they haven't grown their the ranks of their fleets, and they don't have enough tanks. Is it the limitation, or is it just ignorance?
Before I answer that, Jenny in the live chat,
Oh,
it is a direct violation of the Geneva Convention if they're deliberately targeting civilians. When you're firing these MRLS, these multiple rocket launcher systems, it fires 40 rockets, and they are historically inaccurate. They will get within, I don't know what kind of grid square. I mean, they're not very accurate. So technically that's not a violation of Geneva Code, because these are it's indirect fire, and they're not precision weapons. And I know they don't care how much collateral. They want to cause the most collateral damage they can. And I don't think Putin's thinking long term. Well, obviously he's not thinking long term, because look how he crapped his pants when Finland wanted to join NATO. He didn't plan for that. It's backfiring in his face. And now there's a very good chance he's going to be held in some sort of tribunal when this is all over on war crimes. And that he did not predict that either. To answer Kaz's question about generals, most of these Russian generals, former KGB, they're well seasoned. They know what they're doing. The difference is, and it's not the general's fault. It's the politician's fault. It's Putin and his people under him that are putting too much on the generals. Flag officers, colonels, and above in the United States, they have a job to do, and that is steer the bus. They're not on the ground in a field. Field officers do that. The second lieutenants through the lieutenant colonels or lieutenant commanders. These are field grade officers. They're the ones on the ground that are directing the movements on the ground. And another thing, the big thing that Russia doesn't have anything even close to is what the United States military does. The non-commissioned officer corps, specifically in the Army and Marine Corps. These are the E5s. These are the corporals and sergeants that have been, that go to leader. How many Russian corporals and sergeants go to leadership schools? These are small unit leaders that if they get detached from their larger parent unit, or if their supply for any contingency, they have a plan, and they can act even if they're cut off from the rest of their command structure for any given amount of time. That cannot be said for the Russians.
Really, they have nothing like that. That's so
no.
weird.
They have no NCO corps whatsoever to speak of. It's all that's why 17 Russian generals have already been killed. Do you think we even had 17 generals in Iraq? Do you think we even had maybe 2 that weren't in Baghdad? It just doesn't happen. The highest rank that I've ever, maybe a full bird colonel, and that was rare. But to see 17 generals die just in the first few months of this war, that tells you a lot about this top-down, this top-heavy leadership that Russia's doing.
We have a really good question here from Aunt Jer, which is, what are the chances that the higher-ups in the Russian military don't want to be there, and they might be sabotaging themselves? That's something I had not considered.
I don't think that's a very good chance, but I mean, I think that if they were going to do that, then they might just go ahead and oust Putin.
Well, they can't do that without voting him out of office, can they? Unless, I suppose, they could organize a
coup.
A coup, yeah.
Too brute, a Caesar moment.
Yeah,
that's what I'm hoping for. I've been crossing my
That's
fingers
exactly what I've been hoping for too.
I mean,
no. Well, that in the question was the higher ups in the Russian military. Maybe not, but the lower downs, the boots on the ground. First off, when this first kicked off in February, they thought they were going to an operation,
an exercise. Yeah, they didn't even know where they were going. Yeah,
they did not know they were staying, and they did not know
where they were going.
Exactly, they had no idea that it was gonna. Well, and of course, the original wave that came in brought their dress uniforms with them. You heard that, right? That's not a rumor. That really happened. The troops, the first wave came in with their dress uniforms because they thought within 3 to 4 days, they would be marching through the streets of the major cities in Ukraine, and they would be greeted with fanfare. Thank you for liberating us. And they'd be in their dress blues, and they'd be marching with their tanks, and it would be a ticker tape parade. And they thought the war would be over in literally 4 days. And so
The
now their
delusions of
morale
these
is
people.
crushed. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying the delusions of this. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I can't even imagine just being so off the mark so horribly like that. Just
Well, one thing that I don't get is Putin obviously. On one level, I don't think Putin expected that huge victory, that quick victory, because he deceived his own people. He didn't tell them that this is what he was doing, and once it started, he would not let any information out about it. And we saw what he did to the journalists that reported truthfully about what was going on in the war, and we saw in real time, soldiers calling their families from Ukraine, because the Ukrainian people were letting them use their phones to call and say, "Hey, we're in Ukraine. We're fighting a war here." And the people back home didn't even know it. If Putin was really so confident that Ukraine was going to welcome them, why did he not get his own people behind him instead of hiding it from them?
I don't
That
think
part to me never made sense.
I don't think he has any concern for what is right or wrong. I think he just has his pragmatic goals in mind, and he's just going to go for that no matter what. What do you think, Jim?
You guys have heard the stories where more Russians have been captured than killed so far. So there are tons of POWs right now on both sides. In fact, between 300 and 1,200 were Ukrainians that were holding out in that steel mill in was that Mariupol?
Mm-hmm.
So that's about to fall. I think they've already surrendered.
Right. Yeah, I
Okay.
thought they already had too.
Well, the Ukrainians say it's 300, Russians say it's 1,200. So odds are it's somewhere in between. You know how propaganda goes. And that's another thing. The propaganda machine in Russia is, for what they like in their military skills, their propaganda machine is top notch. Consider this. Well, look at the United States. We have free access to any internet. We don't need VPNs. We can get on anything we want on the internet, And still 37% of this country thinks the last election was stolen. Now consider Russia, where a lot of the internet's blocked, and there are ways around that if you want to even try. But I mean, if this country has access to all information and still over a third of them think falsehoods, imagine the propaganda machine going on in Russia. Even if they wanted to go and check out Western news sources, they don't care. They're already brainwashed. So when these Russian POWs in Ukraine are being told to call their parents and, yeah, we'll let you go if your mom comes pick you up. That's a common tactic. Like, if your mom comes into Ukraine right now and comes get you, we'll let you go. That happens all the time. And so these soldiers are calling back to their parents, and their parents are like, or sometimes their kids are dead, and there's a system in Ukraine where they are calling and letting them know what happened to their son, just as an FYI. It's also trying to get information in country, right?
Right,
And
right.
most of the Russians are so brainwashed. They're like, I'm glad my kid went and died for, because they're so brainwashed to think that Ukraine are neo-Nazis. They deserve to be taken over. There's so much propaganda against Ukraine. Some of it's founded. We could talk about that too if you want. That's a different topic, but there is some neo-Nazi former influence in the Ukrainian military. It's trying to be reformed. And
Hello,
there's
Beck.
a whole story with that too.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. One of the fun things about being on the road and staying in hotels is
Oh
Oops.
man,
We lost
You're
Beck.
disconnected.
case in point, right there.
Yep.
Jesus.
I'm sure Beck will be back.
I went off on a real tangent there. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Hotels.
The propaganda machine.
That's all right. We got Beck
Oh, there
back.
we go.
He's back.
internet you're going to get. That's what you don't. And I was just in the middle of saying it kicked me out. So sorry about that.
What's up, Beck?
Did you shave, Beck? I thought you had a beard.
No, I mean, kind of. It just comes in really thin. So I let the sides
okay.
grow out sometimes, and then I shave it off and try to get it to come in a little thicker or whatever. So I am currently not I don't have a beard, but I have a.
Oh, you got a
Oh, shit.
stash.
Yeah, I got a mustache and
That's
I got my little goatee going on. I'm just trying to get it to come in thicker. I'll be good. Yeah,
good shit.
excited.
One thing that I'm sure a lot of people have thought, and we have our special forces, we have Delta, we have all these different contingent factions of our military that have special training and resources, right? I'm sure people are wondering why doesn't America just take Putin out individually, right? By whatever means necessary, right? And I'm wondering if you guys have any thoughts as to why we can't or won't do that.
Well, if we got caught, that would turn world opinion against us real fast.
You think so?
And yeah, well, I don't know. At the beginning of the war, it would have, but now I think this was a point that I was going to bring up is the media role in all of this. I have found the media role to be very interesting because I see a very definite media bias. The channel of news that I would usually watch. Goodness, it's getting dark in here, isn't it? I may have to turn on some lights.
Yeah.
But anyway, the channel that I watch tends to usually be somewhat balanced, at least. But I've noticed that they've really pushed that. Look at the horrible things that Putin is doing. Look at the war crimes that they are committing. Look at how much they are targeting the civilians. And I'm not saying it's wrong, and I'm not saying that they're inaccurate because they're not. But I do see them shaping thought as to how people should think about what's going on there. And I've been very happy to see how the rest of the world is picking up on it. And we've got the UN already investigating war crimes there, and the war isn't even over yet. And I'm going to go turn on a light. I'll be back in just a minute.
I don't even know where to begin on that. Do you have anything, Kaz?
Well, I was asking you what you thought about us taking out Putin.
Oh, yeah.
Special operation.
You know what? See, that's way out of my pay grade. I worked at Fort Meade. If you guys know what Fort Meade is, I'm not going to tell you. Look it up. But I worked there for quite a while. I had access to every operational space there. But that is more collection. The actual field agents, that's more CIA type work. So I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine how they operate. If you have a great idea, if you speak fluent Russian and you got your passport ready and a 50 caliber sniper rifle and you got a good plan, go to Langley and maybe they'll put you to work. I don't know. I don't know what they have brewing. You can bet there's probably some ideas floating around and maybe there's something going on. Maybe we could be a day away from it happening. I highly doubt it. It's way harder than it seems like it'd be way harder than you think to carry out.
No, I'm sure it would be harder than you think.
Yeah.
I'm sure that anybody's fantasy of how it would actually play out is like so super simple that it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, it doesn't mean it's not feasible. I'm sure that an actual CIA tactician probably has some well thought out plan that they could execute.
What would happen if Putin got poisoned by his own people or got taken out? Are the chances that all put in all that time in trouble and then it falls to a second in command and just the ball keeps rolling? I don't know. Or would it just end? Like Hitler really didn't have if he. Well, I mean, he was going down no matter what. They were already inside city limits by the time he took himself out.
Right.
But
I don't know. Had a lot of success with nation building.
Right.
This is an interesting comment. I had not heard this. Mage Greywolf says, I'm hearing some buzz that Putin might have terminal cancer. Yeah, if that's true, it does make a few things make sense. That he wanted to go out in a blaze of glory and show how much of the old Russia he could put back together. But I have not heard anything along these lines.
One of the main reasons they think that, he slurred a couple things in some recent press conferences and speeches, but one of the main things is when he walks really upright, and his right hand, you know how when you walk, your hands move opposite of your legs, right? In a kind of a gait, a sway. His right hand stays right by his side, and they think that it's some sort of like paralysis or something, a stroke or heart attack or something like that. We forget though that he's FSB, he's former KGB. He was a field agent. The guy was a hardcore spy, right? A lot of them are taught to walk with their dominant hand right by their pistol at all times. So, I mean, it's a lot of speculation. We've heard the same thing about Biden and Bernie Sanders and Nancy Pelosi and, of course, Donald Trump.
I've been speculating about the Queen, especially now that she's not even going to attend her own Jubilee. She's only going to appear at the window.
There's a big push in UK right now to make her the last monarch. They want
really?
it to be done. Yeah, they want it to be done.
That would be great. Do it, UK.
Quit wasting so much money on a monarch that does nothing for you.
And get back in the EU before you run out of money.
So, do you guys? How do you think that this is going to end?
That is a really good question. I know how I want it to end. I want to see Ukraine just absolutely kick Putin's butt, and I would like to see. Ukraine start attacking oil facilities, utilities, power plants, anything that's close to the border that's inside Russia. To say, look, you attack us, we're coming right back at you. You are not the be all end all. We're just as good.
Here's my prediction. This is off the cuff, based on this is also with very, very recent reporting that the tides are turning, and a lot of experts now are actually favoring Ukraine in total victory and not giving up an inch of soil. I think that's a little too ambitious. My prediction. Oh, and also we got to. If it's all about supply chain. I already talked about Russia's lack of supply structure, but no large unit can operate for more than, let's say, 5 to 7 days beyond 30 miles of a supply depot in Russia. So anything they send out has to get resupplied within 5 to 7 days, or has to come back to the supply depot themselves, unless Russia does have combat engineers that their whole job in life is to lay down these hasty above ground oil pipelines and supply pipelines. I've got some pictures of it anyway. And they can get these down really fast. The original plan is to hit Kiev, shock and awe, set up an air bridge, take over the airfield that's right outside the city limits of Kiev, take that airfield over and get an air bridge going so they can fly the troop transports and drop the troops right there at the city limits. While they're doing that, supply line comes in and starts dropping these hasty pipelines for the fuel. If they could have done that, this would have been a whole different war. Those pipelines didn't get close to being done. They're just sitting out there. But if those do get done, it's probably all over, and Putin wins. I don't see that happening either. So there's the left and right, the really ambitious and the really like, oh crap scenario. Mine's somewhere in the middle. I think Putin and Zelensky are not going to go to the table, even though Erdogan wants it to happen in Turkey. I don't see that happening, but I think there will be some way that they will. Zelensky's going to end up giving all of Eastern Ukraine up, and and most of the southern border. It might even give up the entire southern coastline, and that will be by November-ish of this year, and then Putin will back off for another, let's see, how long was it from Crimea to now? That was 8 years. So he'll wait another 8 years before he tries to take the rest of Ukraine, and then Belarus, and then Estonia. See what he'll do? He'll just wait 5 or 8 years. He'll take over some more. So as of right now, by the end of this year sometime, he'll have all of Eastern Ukraine, and he'll have it annexed. And then the war will be over for another 8 years until he wants to bite off another chunk.
I don't know. I think his losses in Ukraine have been so great that it's going to take him longer than that to recover to ever try to take anything more again.
I hope you're right. I hope
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
You know, they're destroying so much infrastructure. They're going to have to rebuild all of this if they're going to make this a territory for themselves in the future. I mean, it seems like a huge waste of money.
It's a great point.
No.
There's nothing to take over if you destroy it all. But
Yeah, I know,
no,
but-
even if you level it to the ground and kill everyone, it's still, you know how much oil it's sitting on top of.
Yeah.
And that's really what the real battle's for.
Competition for resources.
And you guys heard I think it was yesterday, just within the last couple of days, all new sanctions. So now Russia can't sell to, I think China dropped them for the most part. India, and there's another country, maybe Estonia, that has some loophole. So they are still buying some, but pretty much Russia is scrambling looking for places to sell petroleum. The sanctions are getting really bad, worse than I ever thought could be possible.
Yeah, early on when the sanctions hit, I heard a lot of the Russian people complaining, you're starving our people, our we can't get food, we can't buy this, we can't buy that. And I'm thinking, so what? Why should we care? You're out there bombing other people's hospitals, you're killing people's children. Why should we care that you can't get a Big Mac?
Exactly. That's good.
I mean, it's unfortunate what's going on with the people of Russia. I mean, I don't know what it's like to grow up in Russia. I don't know how much influence, what it's like to be programmed or, talked to by the state media in such a way that they control the way I think. So I can't empathize with that fully, but I do know that if to whatever extent that they have any culpability in Putin's regime, any power that they have to get him out of there, that's what responsibility they have to the people in Ukraine and all the people that are dying there. I mean, we have to stop this fighting. I mean, I understand that NATO's expansion westward since the 90s seems like some kind of encroachment to him. I can empathize with that argument all day long. And maybe there is something to be done there that could have been more peaceful. Maybe we should have acquiesced in some kind of way. I think that if Putin appealed to the American people as opposed to attacking the Ukrainians, then maybe there would have been more, progress there.
Name one time that a NATO country has committed an unprovoked aggression on a sovereign nation, though. This is faux alarm on Putin's part. He knows. He knows full well. Even if every country, right up to his borders, every country on his western side, were NATO, he knows he has nothing to worry about. It's not a peace. It's not a hawkish pact. We're not looking to gain territory militarily.
It's like he knows that he's a problem, so he knows that they have to worry about him. So he knows that he has to worry about them because he's a problem for them. If that makes sense.
Mage Grey Wolf says the civilians aren't doing the bombing. I know that says I, but he fixed it to aren't here. And I believe this has to do with my comment that, why should we care if Russian people can't get a Big Mac when they're the ones that are bombing Ukrainian hospitals and killing Ukrainian children. And my response to that is, okay, maybe the civilians themselves are not out there doing the actual bombing, but they are the ones that put Putin in office, and Putin is doing this. And they are the ones that have the power to take Putin back out of office. And if we let them get off scot-free, that, they do not have to suffer in any way for this war, why would they have any kind of motivation to try to get rid of Putin? They're benefiting from this war, so they need to suffer as well.
I partially agree. First, we have to raise awareness. We have to break through the propaganda machine. And hats off to Anonymous and other hacker groups, and hats off to public figures, Pussy Riot, and hats off to just your plain civilian in Moscow that there are many ways to display your courage in these times. and getting on live TV, even with a blank protest. If someone got arrested for just walking in front of a camera with a blank protest card, it didn't have anything on it, and they still got arrested for protesting. But any way you can display your courage and get the word out there that this is pure disinformation. That's, like I said, the vast majority of Russian citizens think that this is a just cause. They want Ukrainians to die. They think it's a country full of Nazis that need to get put down. They're hate-filled and they're warlike.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the fact is, like, even if they are Nazis, it is not okay to just go killing people. I'm sorry.
Great point.
Like,
now, I can give you a brief rundown. And this, I'm going to caveat this. I watch a lot of Hal Sparks. You remember Hal Sparks from Talk Soup, that comedian? Well, he's got a podcast, and I'm addicted to it now. He speaks Russian. He was a Russian political science major. He knows a lot about what's going on there, even though he's just a comedian. But hey, the president of Ukraine is just a comedian, and he's doing a stand-up job. So anyway, Hal Sparks, I'm watching his podcast, and I'm leveling with you. I'm getting all this information from him. But he says the root of this propaganda, of this hate against this anti-Ukrainian, the entire Putin's justification for even going into country is because this neo-Nazi pervasive attitude that's invaded the military and invaded the politics. Well, that's partially true. Of course, Zelensky is a Jew, and that's our big retort is, how can it be neo-Nazi and nationalistic and white nationalistic when their president's a Jew? Great point, but there's more to it than that. Prior to Zelensky, what was that old president's name? Poroshenko, and before that were puppet regimes placed by Putin. Putin does this with all the former Soviet countries that he can. He places puppets that will do his bidding. When Zelensky won, it was an underdog kind of situation. He didn't see it coming. He didn't think this comedian / reality star was going to be Poroshenko. When he did, he kind of like, oh, God, DEFCON 1. And so this is when he started making the plan. And so all this happened before Zelensky. Poroshenko plussed up the Ukrainian military like threefold while he was in office. How did he do that? Well, the way a lot of Eastern Europe and the former Soviet states, their military consists of these scattered militias that defend just little regions or their city. And these militias are really, they're unprofessional. They're not super organized. And some of them, including this Azov regiment, the Azov battalion, maybe you've heard of it.
yeah.
So some of these militias are kind of like, I guess in the United States, it'd be like a biker gang taking over, a small town in Texas, and they form this militia just to guard the city and all these biker gangs. And they just happen to be a white nationalist biker gang, right? So this Azov battalion started out, it was only like 600 guys, and it's less than that now. They were all white nationalists. They were neo-Nazis. Yes, they were. Their flag is still very SS looking. It's to this day it is. When Zelensky got into office, one of his big goals was to consolidate these militias, get them back into the military, vet them. So he's let a lot of them go. A lot of them don't meet the vetting requirements. And even though they're still around, they're down to 8. The Azov battalion is, let's just call them 600 troops, right? Only 8% of them are neo-Nazis now. They're still there, yes. It's still going through a reform. Zelensky's causing this reform. The president that came before him just lumped all these militias together. So when Putin's talking about all of Ukrainian military and all the politicians are neo-Nazis, no, it's really just the Azov battalion and some other outliers, former militia members, and the reforms are happening.
Yeah. So it's like he can just make up any excuse he can, or just use anything he can to justify his actions, right?
Right. And a lot of mostly conservatives, but I've actually seen liberals here in the States actually fall for the rhetoric as well. So you'll see some of the pro-Trumpers, the ones that just can't get off of Putin's teat because Donald Trump likes Putin, so therefore I got to like Putin. And so I've got to agree with what Putin says, and I've got to get on board with all this propaganda that he's spewing to his people over in Russia. It's surprising how many people here believe it.
You don't think that the states that have joined NATO since '97 have done any, that hasn't had any kind of effect on him aside from an excuse?
Say it one more time. I'm trying to
I
process what
think
you're
it
asking.
has.
The nations that Go ahead. Sorry.
I think Finland joining NATO was a huge blow to Russia. I think they realized that they put too much they put too much fear into the rest of the world about how aggressive they were.
They already officially joined. I didn't know that was a done deal yet.
Oh no. I
Oh, yeah,
didn't
okay.
mean that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
oversaid, but yeah,
Yeah.
you know, they're in the process.
I'm just wondering, do you think that it's just an excuse, literally nothing more than an excuse, or is there at least some good faith concern on their part for the nation states that have joined NATO?
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay.
No, and getting back to what you said earlier, Kaz, that was you. Right. I'm going to just dovetail off of what you originally said. You were saying, even if Ukraine was this white nationalist, but if they're non-hostile, non-aggressive, and they're not looking to take any bites out of any other countries,
Right.
that's still a whole different animal. And what Russia's doing is still, even if Ukraine maybe if they're full of hate, let's just think of the worst possible Ukraine, military and politicians and populace, but still coming into an unprovoked attack on their country, still bad. That's what you were trying to get at, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't justify violence unless there's an initial act of violence against me in my ethical framework.
Yep.
One article that I saw, excuse me, talked about how one of the things that really led up to this war was there were arms limitations treaties over the last couple of decades, and Trump allowed a number of these arms treaties to expire without trying to renew them. And when Biden came into office, Biden started to renegotiate some of these treaties, and Russia didn't want anything to do with it. And that was kind of the first signal that Ukraine was coming, because this was just like 2 months before Russia invaded Ukraine, that Russia no longer wanted to discuss arms limitations.
Don't know anything about that.
Okay. That was an
So-
article that I read in the New York Times just this
wow.
afternoon.
Were they mentioning anything about the Green Climate Fund and the German deal?
No, they were only talking about START.
Okay. So yeah, I was looking into, I was trying to catch up on things, and I was talking to people about in preparation for this, right? And one of my neighbors is a businessman with deep ties to old money and whatever, right? And he was trying to tell me that Biden, or at least the administration, had applied some kind of 20% tax on the fuel from the Nord Stream pipeline. And I couldn't find anything on that. I couldn't find any kind of evidence to substantiate that. And only thing that I could find is that there was a bipartisan deal against Biden's wishes that was struck with Germany that would include a $1 billion fund for the Green Climate Fund. And I'm just wondering if that's what he was talking about. I'm just wondering if that's something to do with what you're talking about, because it's all just so convoluted.
I don't know. I'm not aware of that.
Talking nuclear arms reduction.
It's about the Green Climate Fund is a fund that goes to all these different countries. Ukraine's not even on the list on their website, so I'm not sure. I don't know. It's very confusing. I don't think that this is what he was talking about. Like, I don't think that what he was saying is true. So I don't know.
Oh, and Jer, I just noticed that I said the president of Ukraine is a comedian and he's doing a stand-up job. I didn't even realize what was coming out of my mouth. That's funny. Thanks for noticing. As far as nuclear limitations, you guys know the United Nations, it's every country. And in the spirit of equal representation, it doesn't matter what country you are. And they try to keep it as peaceful as possible in the UN, right? Every calendar month, a different country is chosen pretty much random. It's a list. It's a schedule. Each month, a different country heads up the nuclear arms limitation talks for that month. And starting today, June 1st, guess who, for the next month, guess who's in charge of reducing nuclear weapons on Earth?
Russia.
Worse.
Who's worse?
North Korea?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yes. The DPRK is in charge of nuclear reduction for this month. So don't hold your breath on anything.
Okay.
So ironic.
Bring them on.
Oh, and if someone in the live chat could look up, if you have time, look up the not just United States, but total. We've given, NATO countries have given 4,000 Javelin anti-tank missile weapon systems to Ukraine. 4,000, and they're using them, and they're pretty easy to use. They're not wire guided. They're above line of sight, so the jamming systems on the tanks can't see them coming. They're just deadly. They're awesome. They're fire and forget weapons. So you can, because you give away your position as soon as you fire anything. But these aren't wire guided, so you can set them off and you can shoot, move, and relocate. You can get out of there, which is great. That's what they need to do. But there's something that the UK's given them, or have already started giving them. It's not Hellfire. There's another type of really easy to use, really powerful, really deadly anti-tank weapon system. And my prediction about Putin go ahead and taking all of the Donbass by November, that might not happen if Ukraine starts. If you can tell me, someone in the live chat, look up the UK anti-tank weapon system that Ukraine's getting their hands on. That could be a huge game changer. Because it's a dual type penetration weapon. Because Russian T-62, T-72, the T-80s and the T-90s, they don't have many T-90s left, I hear.
Titan says it's Hellfire.
Hellfire? Okay. Yeah, they've got, it's a double pop system to where it explodes twice. It explodes once to set off the reactive kinetic armor on the outside of the tank. This is armor, like if it was just like an RPG. Most of these T-90 Russian tanks, I've seen video where it survived 7 RPG hits and it's still operational because of this reactive armor. As soon as an RPG hits it, it's a single explosion, and this reactive armor just pops off and blows it up before it can penetrate into the actual armor. But some of these, whatever the Brits are giving them, it hits, it explodes that reactive armor, then it explodes again and puts a hole right in the tank. And the way the tank, the way the T-80s and above these are auto load. They can fire fast. Within like 5 to 7 seconds, they can get another round off. These tanks are fast reload. The downside to that is all the rounds are set up in like a big magazine around the turret. So if you can hit the turret just explodes off and it leaves a big gaping hole. Yeah. Anyway, so that would be a huge game changer if they get their hands on enough of those British anti-tank weapons.
Well, another thing that's really given Ukraine an advantage is the United States has been providing a lot of tactical support. They've been giving them a lot of intel about where Russia is, what they're doing. They've been giving them tactical advice on how to hit things, how to defeat certain targets, and the Ukrainians have been listening and doing exactly as they've been advised.
Thanks, Titan and Tareem. Yeah. Oh, so they've already gotten their hands on 5,000 of them. Holy balls. Maybe November that was not a great prediction. You know what? Ukraine might be able to hold out the rest of the year and then some. I think eventually Putin, he has to save face. He's got to come back and tell Russia that he got something. And everything I'm seeing is he wants Donbass. He wants that eastern part of southeastern Ukraine. I don't think he's going to stop until he gets it. It might be a war of attrition.
Here's one other thing I've been considering and thinking about. One of the issues is all of that grain that's sitting in the Black Sea that can't move because of the Russian blockade. And it's hurting the Ukrainians because they can't sell the grain. But it's also hurting the rest of Europe because they're the ones that normally buy the grain. And I'm wondering if there is a tipping point when the Europeans will be so upset with not being able to purchase that grain that they might take some kind of action to either defeat the blockade themselves or more likely give the Ukrainians what they need to defeat that blockade.
Give the
Well, I mean,
Ukrainians what they need.
Right. Give them the ability to sink the Russian ships so
Oh,
that
yeah,
to destroy the
yeah.
blockade. I mean, they destroyed that one ship.
they're probably trying to give them what they need, as far as trying to give them what they need to sink the ships. But I mean, as far as actually stepping in, I mean,
Yeah, I don't know that they would do that because that would change the war entirely. But at this point, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure that that would be a bad thing.
I would have stepped in a long time ago, personally. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but
Early on, a lot of people were really afraid that if we or any other country took any action against Russia, that we would trigger World War III.
I don't care.
The
I'm
101st.
I'm not so sure.
I wish Beck was here to confirm this. So I think there are elite army units in Poland just white knuckling this, just chomping at the bit to get in there.
Like,
I can see a contingency
yeah.
in which we do send some special ops.
Mhm.
the idea that reacting to somebody else's action is us triggering World War III is mind-blowingly ludicrous. I can't even
Brimstone, that's
imagine.
them. Sorry, Kaz. It's the Brimstone. That's the UK, right? Brimstone missiles. Those could be the game changers. They're only like this big. And like I said, a civilian can pick up one, never seen it in their life, and be fully operational and accurate with it within 24 hours. It takes no time to train on it. All right, sorry, Kaz. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's all I had to say.
Speaking of civilians being armed, I saw a really interesting article the other day about how the Ukrainian people are so angry with the Russians and so motivated to defend their countries their country that lots of civilians are taking up arms. And I saw a picture of a soldier training a 70-year-old woman on how to use an assault rifle. I thought that was so cool.
That is cute.
The
that.
reason I'm not over there right now mostly is because of the language barrier. So for those of you that don't know, I applied to originally the Ukrainian Foreign Legion. They said, come on, get on a plane. As soon as you land in Warsaw, hit one of these two checkpoints at the Ukrainian border and we'll pick you up. That's how much they wanted me. A 54-year-old has-been. They wanted me bad. I did a little more research prior to actually buying the plane ticket. Thank goodness. I have some huge reservations. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but I've heard some horror stories about foreigners, specifically U.S. and Brits, or the Five Eyes countries, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, getting conscripted in there and getting their passports ripped up and told, and you're not leaving until we tell you, and then sending them out unarmed to in the middle of the night without any weapons to search for paratroopers in the area, stuff like that. And that some of that might be propaganda. I've heard too much. And if there's only a 1% chance some of it's true, it's not for me. It sounds like a kind of shady outfit. That's why I didn't go for it. So then I switched gears. I said, okay, an NGO. I'm gonna apply. I applied 5 times to UNICEF for a driver, refugee driver from Kiev to the Polish border. Thought that would be awesome. I can get some refugees to safety, and I was ready to just buy a plane ticket and go. UNICEF hasn't responded to any of. Now, again, in the list of requirements, a strong requirement to speak Ukrainian. Of course, I don't speak any Cyrillic language. I'm thinking that or my age, I don't know. But anyway, UNICEF hasn't responded. Red Cross wanted me to start locally and do house fire recoveries here in my local area, and then apply for overseas. I had to complete I did an entire 3 days of training to be on a disaster action team. Then they said, you're going to stay put locally. It's just, by the time I actually could get to Red Cross overseas, it seems like this would be over. So I basically I've just given up. So I'm going to be here for a while. I have to come to terms with I'm an old, washed up has-been. But I honestly did give a good effort to get over there.
Neil the 604 atheist asked if I think was asking when he said Canada, if when Jenny Morgan was saying that we should send the NRA or have the NRA send 1 million or so gun freaks to fight, I think he was asking, do we want to fight Canada? And the answer is no. We don't want to fight Canada. We want to fight Russia. Send all of our gun freaks and all of our gun stores. Hey, there we go. We will solve the gun violence problem in the United States. Just round up all the guns and send them to Ukraine.
All these ammosexuals that have created this fetishized culture out of guns or firearms. A very, very small minority would actually have the gonads to go over there and fight for something they believe in. Most of them seem like they're all talk.
Yeah.
Titan says, I'm older than you. Shush, Jim. I'm older than Jim too, but I'm also not looking to go fight anywhere. I'm in no condition physically to do it. The best that I can do is a war of shame. Send me out in the front to get shot and then tell him, shame on you for firing on this disabled old lady. That is the best that I can do.
Do you think that maybe, see, that you're viewed by thousands of people a month, and maybe there's a few Russian citizens over there that with a VPN, and maybe someone over there is listening to you. You might be making some changes and not even realize it.
It's possible. It's possible.
Cobra
My best weapon has always been my frown.
Frown at Putin.
Yeah, Putin, this is for you.
That's it on my notes. Oh, did I mention that their MREs are like the newest MREs that when Ukrainians take them POW, they go through their belongings, and so they see all the types of what they're being supplied, right? The newest they see, like the most fresh MREs, are from 2015. Most are even older than that.
Well,
and they keep for a long time, but I'm not going to bite into an MRE from 2012. A 10-year-old MRE, yeah. How many are getting sick from that?
What was your favorite MRE, Jim?
Well, I'm a vegetarian, so is the cheese omelet, which is great because none of the other Marines wanted it, so I could trade for it, no problem. And bonus, it came. The cheese omelet came with a little tiny bottle of Tabasco and the cherry nut cake. So win-win.
Yeah.
I like the cherry nut cake too. When we moved to Alabama, which was 9 years ago, I threw away the rest of the MREs. And at that point, I think they'd been in the pantry for at least 10 years.
What was your favorite MRE, Kaz?
Chicken cavatelli.
Oh,
Probably never tried that one, right?
It smelled good. I remember that.
Yeah. It was so good. You get all the cheeses from all the people who didn't want them and the Tabasco sauce, and you throw it all in there. It was almost like real food.
I had it, not to go on too much of a tangent. If you take all the little side stuff, the saltine crackers, the coffee creamer, the salt, sugar, the coffee, the Folgers coffee instant, and something else, you mix, just crush it all up, mix it together, it makes a little coffee flavored pudding.
Oh yeah, that sounds good.
I think I still have an MRE cookbook.
Oh wow.
Wow, that's a cookbook.
Yeah, somebody put together a cookbook of what you could do with MREs to make them a bit more tasty. What combined well.
There's probably
And
a TikTok by now, huh?
Oh yeah, I've had that for at least 20 years.
Oh man.
There needs to be an instruction manual on how to properly spoon the impacted feces out of your ass if you've been eating MREs for more than 3 weeks in a row.
When my husband first started in the Army, they were still eating sea rations.
Oh.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh,
Cans.
it's cans, little cans, and it comes with a little tool to open the cans, and it came with a little pack of 5 Lucky Strike cigarettes.
Oh, okay, yeah, interesting.
I still have those little P45s. It was funny because I asked my husband to open a can of tomatoes like a week ago, and he opened up the silverware drawer looking for one. He said, "I can't find the can opener." I said, "We have an electric one, dear. We've had one for 10 years now."
He's trying to do the old way.
I've got about maybe 15 minutes left, Granny. I have one more thing just to touch on why they're eating these rancid MREs and why they have to ask for directions and why it's so easy to for the Ukrainians to mess with their heads by taking down all the road signs and just putting up in its place, "Welcome to hell," getting inside their heads. They have no idea where they are. They're just playing follow the leader. They have no small unit leadership tactics. Their sergeants are useless. It might just be an entire battalion full of privates that don't know what the hell they're doing. So all these supply problems, as soon as they get into town, a lot of these war crimes is due to desperation because they're hungry. There's a lot of looting going on. Now, why? I'm going to ask both of you. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's the military so underfunded?
Because the state is looted by the oligarchs.
Yeah, that's part of it. I think part of it is, I think Putin was so certain that he was going to win so quickly that he didn't arrange for the funding for long-term supply chains. He wasn't expecting to need them.
I think the wealth gap is as worse or as bad or worse than the United States. And here our current wealth gap is wider than. Remember when Marie Antoinette and everything? Remember the French Revolution when heads were rolling because of the wealth gap? Guess what? Our wealth gap right now, adjusted for inflation, it's worse now here in the United States. And I'm guessing it's even worse there under an oligarchy where you've got maybe a couple dozen guys that are used to a super beyond our wildest dreams manner of life. What am I trying to say?
Style of living. Yeah.
Yes.
I saw that when I was there. Yeah. I saw that when I was there.
Right.
I was in Russia about, let's see, Robin is 21 and Robin was about 5.
Quality of life. Sorry, that's it.
Yeah. And when I went over there, yeah, I definitely saw that because number one, our Russian guide, anytime she saw anyone who had any money, she said, "Oh, they're either a high up politician or they're in the Russian mob." Because those are the only people who have any money is the mob and the politicians.
I'll
and the
right
other
now.
thing that was a real shocker was when we were in Moscow, they kept taking us to all these fast food places. And we said, we'd really like to experience a real sit down Russian restaurant. And they said, "You can't afford it. Only the very wealthy can afford a sit down restaurant in Moscow."
Wow.
It's the wealth disparity. That's what's losing the war. I firmly believe it, based on everything I've seen. I can't be 100% certain, but it seems like that the top 24 billionaires are creating a vacuum. They're hoovering up all the spares military surplus money, all the budget, and the military suffers. And now remember, Putin thought this was going to be a 4-day deal. He thought it was going to be Crimea Part 2. He thought in and out like a duck mating. Yeah. So,
that's interesting because we on the left bemoan our military budget quite a bit. So, what implications does this have for us in our political agenda?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
That's a really good question.
Our
because
budget
if
is
we
20
were not where we are, we would
our
not
budget
have
is
been able
bigger
to do
than
what we did.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kelly. Our budget is bigger than the next 25 budgets, and 24 of those 25 are our allies.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying that. Well, I don't know what I'm saying. I really don't know what I'm saying. I just know that there's something to be learned from every situation. So, I mean, what should we learn from this?
If we cut our military budget in half, we're just as effective. We're still a force in readiness. And then combine that with taxing church and all church-owned property. Maybe we could end hunger problems. We could start some serious social services, some social programs.
Yeah, and the supply guys when they're doing their ordering, like their budget is based on need. Like they have to keep up with their budget in order for their budget to be maintained. If they don't order the same amount of supplies as the last quarter, then their budget's going to get cut. So they're just constantly playing this game where spend in order to keep the money coming in. I don't know what the solution is to that. I really can't even fathom what that would be like, but there has to be something that stops that kind of wasteful spending, because that's in every facet of our military budget.
It starts at the legislative branch, and you know how their track record of getting things done.
Yeah.
It has to be military spending bills that reduce it, because like you said, I was there. I wasn't a supply guy, but I saw what happened. Oh, we're getting close to the end of the quarter. We got $3,000 to spend. We got to spend it on something.
Right.
Or they're going to cut 3,000 off of next quarter for our budget. So we'll just spend on, and I was, at the time I was teaching recruits down in San Diego. I was teaching them Marine Corps martial arts. And I said, we didn't have 3,000. We had 25 or 30,000 for the entire depot. And I said, can I have it? I know. And I took it all the way up the chain of command, and I got approved. And I wrote a check. I think it was like $27,000. I actually wrote a check for it. And it was for 900 cubic yards of wood chips, 300 yards of telephone poles, whole bunch of gold paint, whole bunch of scarlet red paint. And I made a big martial arts pit. It was like, it's probably about a quarter the size of a football field. It was just this big. It's filled with like 9 inches deep of wood chips. It was where all the recruits could come out and practice their martial arts. But that wouldn't have happened if we didn't have money to burn at the end of a quarter.
That's actually a really good use of the money, though. I mean, I applaud that. I applaud that all day. That's a great use. I mean, if every S shop was using the money in that way, I mean, we probably wouldn't have a big problem with military spending in the first place.
Yeah. Prior to that, the recruits were on bare, hard earth, practicing their takedowns and their throws. So this prevented how much injury? Maybe all their chokes and holds and their arm bars were done just on hard earth. Anyway, guys, I got about 10 more minutes. I hate to cut it early, but
well,
I
was going to be wrapping down pretty soon anyway,
okay.
So it's no big deal. And so if you want to say, why don't we do this? Let's let you put in plugs for anything that you want to put in plugs for us. Let everyone know what show you're going to, so everyone can go to that show as soon as this one is over, and we'll let you give any final closing thoughts and let you go, and then Kaz and I'll keep up for maybe another 5-10 minutes, and then we'll close out the show.
Excellent. Let me go through my notes and make sure I hit everything. I can give you guys some talking points after I leave. No, I think I hit it all. This was awesome. Well, I was going to talk about the General. I'll leave with this. General Pershing. One of his famous quotes is, "Infantry wins the battle, but logistic wins the wars." And that in a nutshell is why Putin is failing: logistics, supply chain. And remember what I said about those combat engineer battalions. If they get those hasty pipelines, above ground pipelines, all the way to Kiev, the game's over. Okay, so on the 7th of June, I've got Matt Dillahunty and Godless Granny and Tracy Barkley. She's a comedian. The four of us are going to talk about, council culture. What is it? Does it exist? But specifically, we're going to touch on the Ricky Gervais Netflix special. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's gonna be a lively discussion. He said half my friends think it was deliberately transphobic things that he said in his special, and the other said he doesn't believe what he's saying. It's irony, it's comedy. Lighten up. So it's going to be a lively discussion. That's on the 7th. And then in about 45 minutes, I'll be on Aram Ra's channel, and we're going to talk about firearms law, reforms in the firearms law. What needs to get done to prevent what happened?
Repeal the Second Amendment.
Yeah. Shots fired.
That'll be a lively one too. It just bad luck that I spent all day. So Granny's topic here and RN's topic there, two things I really wanted to study before I came on. So I've just been spending all day taking pages and pages of notes for each show. That's it.
We
Okay.
appreciate
Well,
it, Jim.
Thank you very much for coming, Jim. And so
Okay.
everyone, when you're done here, go over to RN Roz. It'll be on RN Roz channel, right?
Yes, and he wasn't going to do it live, but I think it. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure
he's
it
not
is
doing
live
it
now.
live. Okay.
Yeah, it is
So
going to be
check
live.
out-
It is going to be
Oh,
live.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a link to the show?
No, I don't yet. He sent
Okay.
me the join link, the behind the scenes one. But it'll be in
Okay.
45 minutes. Just go to Aaron Ross channel. It
Okay,
should
yeah.
pop up. Okay.
So
Thanks
yeah,
so
when
much,
we're
guys.
done here. Okay, thanks for coming. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
See you later, Jim.
And everyone, when we are done here, go over to RN Roz channel and check out Jim on RN Roz channel. Okay, Kaz, any other areas on the war that we didn't touch on yet that you wanted to get to?
Well, there was something that I had in my head, but it escaped me. It was there anything that you wanted to get to? See if it goes back.
No, I mostly just wanted to crap all over Putin.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit tired of a lot of the things that I've been talking about for a while, and I just felt like doing something a little bit different. And Maya brings up a really good point. Repeal the Second Amendment. We can't even pass background checks. And yeah, I know. But I also feel like if I take this could backfire on me. But my position is if I go all the way to repeal the Second Amendment, then I can compromise down to background checks, and at least we can get something done. On the other hand, that could backfire on me, and people could say, "Oh no, she's trying to take away our guns." Which, yeah, if I could, that's exactly what I want to do. I hate guns. Get rid of the fucking guns.
Shoot for the stars and hope to land on the moon or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I got you. No, I mean, Putin is a piece of shit, right?
Yep.
I mean, I don't feel bad for him. I wish I could say something empathetic at this moment because I really try to do that usually, but
Okay.
yeah.
I'm going to derail us just for a moment. Aunt Jura says that she is not seeing an upcoming stream on Aaron's channel. Jim had said it's possible that they were not live streaming this, that maybe they were streaming it and that he's going to edit it. So maybe he thought it was going to be live. Maybe it's not. And if it's not, just be watching for that when it comes up on Aaron's channel. Sorry about that, Cass.
No, go ahead. No,
Okay.
I really don't know what else to say about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we've pretty much covered it then, because that pretty much was what I wanted to talk about was the fact that, Putin seriously underestimated the Ukrainian people. He went into a war thinking that he had this made and he didn't. And as a result, he's got his own people suffering with all of the sanctions against them. He's causing his military to suffer. I mean, he's lost. I have no idea how many people he's lost that have been killed. He's firing his generals left and right. Which means he's obviously got to be promoting people who are not ready for the job to fill in as new generals. And I only see this going downhill even faster.
Yeah.
And world opinion is with Zelensky and with the Ukrainian people.
I
And
do remember now.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was
No,
just
go ahead.
so looking back at history, it seems like we've been hesitant to get into scuffles and wars,
Mhm.
and eventually we end up getting into them anyways. And it seems to me that process ends up costing more lives primarily, but also, time, money, et cetera, right? So I'm just wondering if that calculus has occurred to you, and if you think that maybe we should just go ahead and get in there and try to end this quickly.
At this point, that is what I would like to see us do. But on the other hand, I also see a great deal of wisdom in not having done it until now. Because if we had gotten in right away, I think we would have been seen as almost as aggressive as Russia. But because the rest of the world has turned against Russia because of the aggression, because of all of the war crimes and atrocities they've committed, I think if we come in and end this now, we will be seen more in the role that we were seen in when we entered World War II than we would be seen, when we made the blunder of entering Vietnam.
Hmm. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, with World War II, we had a direct attack that we could respond to, and it's very clean there, Whereas here, it's not so clean. Um,
Mhm.
I just the difficulty for me there is that given that Putin has been the clear initial aggressor in all of this for the violence piece, right? Um, I just don't see how and that mean they being the world leaders, could even try to look at us as being in the wrong for matching that aggression. I,
Mhm.
but I mean that's just how I see it. I'm wondering if that's just my personal opinion and not.
I
I
agree
don't
with
know.
you 100%. I agree with you 100%. And like Manny Geisen just said, I think Biden has played this whole thing very well.
Think so?
The MAGAs are going to criticize him no matter what he does. But frankly, and Biden definitely was not my choice for president. I was Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren all the way. But I've been impressed the way Biden has handled this war.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't complain too much.
Hmm.
I do feel like the hesitancy is costing lives, and I think that the lives that have been lost so far are kind of on our hands because we
I don't
aren't.
agree with that. Yes, I agree the hesitancy has cost lives, but I don't think if we had entered in sooner that it would have helped that much.
I mean, it's like an alternate universe type of thing where we never would know, right? Like if we couldn't go back in time and enter it sooner and then see how it all plays out. So you're right. I mean, we don't know. So I agree. To a certain extent, I guess. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say there.
It's okay. All right. Well, we are really down to the end of our time here anyway, and so Kaz, I'd like to give you an opportunity to shill for any programs that you have coming up or any other programs that you want to plug.
Sure. So yeah, I'm Kaz. My channel is called the Factitionalist Network. My show is called Contentions, and I have a show tomorrow night. I will be having a little debate against Mr. Delicio. He is the 7-day cycle Sabbath challenge guy who calls in on all the atheist shows. So that should be fun. Next Friday, I'll be having an abortion discussion with Kay Fellows and Cindy Plaza.
That'll be
That should be fun.
interesting.
Yeah. So
Kay
subscribe.
has some really interesting opinions.
Yeah, she's an interesting person. And we had a debate before on physician assisted suicide where I thought that we were going to vehemently disagree. And then it all just turned out to be pretty amicable.
I had a debate with someone once, and Aunt Jur, who I think is still in the audience right now, at the
Oh,
end
yeah.
of it said, "That wasn't a debate, that was tea and crumpets."
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's a good thing. I hope people can appreciate that kind of thing, even if they are out for blood sports or whatever. But I like it. I think that's good that people can understand each other and come to some kind of meeting of the minds.
And Aunt Jura has just thrown up a link to your channel, but in the description also there is a link to Kaz's channel, to Jim's channel,
Thank you, Andrew.
and to Beck's as well. Beck was supposed to be here, and for those of you who didn't see, Beck was here briefly, but Beck is on a trip and is currently in Colorado and is at a hotel, and the internet just was not working. Beck popped in and out a couple of times, but just couldn't stay because the internet wouldn't stay. And with that, I want to thank everyone in the chat. You have contributed a great deal with questions and comments. It has been absolutely wonderful having you. And Kaz, thank you so much for joining me. And I know he's gone, but thank you also to Jim Hall for coming. And everyone, next week, what I have coming up. Okay. Produced video this week is a response to a live show that it's not really show, but a live talk that Cameron Bertuzzi gave on how to have a better conversation. And he actually made some decent points in that as well. I'm a little bit behind. Normally, I release to my patrons on Friday and to the public on Saturday. But because of the holiday week, and then I had a bunch of things come up today that were just little things that I had to take care of today. So that video is about a day behind. So it'll probably be Saturday or Sunday before, Saturday for my patrons and Sunday for the public before that actually comes out. And then next week, Jenny Morgan, our own Jenny Morgan, was instrumental in helping to draft a law that the La Crosse, Wisconsin City Council is considering passing, which would be a ban on conversion therapy. And Jenny Morgan, and I'm not sure if the other person that was involved was a doctor or just some other trans people, they specifically tailored the law to help pave the way to continue providing medical care for transgender people. And so Jenny is going to be on to talk about how she was able to help draft this law and where they are in the process of getting this law passed. And if we can get this through La Crosse, Wisconsin, maybe we can start spreading this around the country and getting some more support for healthcare for transgender people. So that is the stream next Wednesday.
That's really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I will check that out.
Okay. Jenny said that that what they did is being featured on Nightline. Now, I did not get the date that is being featured on Nightline, but that is something to check out as well.
Sure, definitely.
Okay.
Exciting.
And so with that, everyone, thank you so much for coming. And thank you, Kaz, for coming, and live your life.
Yeah. Bye.